Imagine for a moment the relentless mechanical hum of the modern world slowly beginning to fade. The harsh artificial lights of the city streets, the incessant buzzing of digital screens, the constant demanding roar of traffic, all of it begins to dissolve into a soft, formless mist around you. You are stepping away from the concrete and the steel, away from the digital urgency that dictates every second of your waking life. Close your eyes and feel the hard pavement beneath your feet soften, transforming into something rich, damp, and deeply alive. You are traveling backward, not by years or centuries, but by millennia. The numbers on the calendar spin in reverse, shedding thousands, then tens of thousands of years, until time itself loses its meaning. You are drifting into the Pleistocene epoch, a time when the earth was untamed, breathing with a wild, primordial rhythm. As the mist clears, you open your eyes to a world that is both achingly beautiful and profoundly intimidating. You are entirely alone, standing at the dawn of human history, and you have exactly 1 week to survive. The first thing you notice is the air. It is unlike anything you have ever drawn into your lungs. It is shockingly crisp, heavy with the raw, unfiltered scent of damp earth, crushed pine needles, and the faint, sweet perfume of wildflowers that have no modern names. There is no trace of exhaust, no metallic tang of industry, no subtle chemical undertones. It is the scent of a planet untouched by human machinery. With every slow, deliberate breath you take, it feels as though your lungs are expanding, waking up from a lifelong slumber. The temperature is cool, a gentle, biting breeze that dances across your skin, raising goosebumps on your arms. You are wearing only simple, durable clothing, sturdy boots, thick trousers, and a woven shirt, barely enough to ward off the chill of a world that is still slowly emerging from the grip of the last great ice age. You wrap your arms around yourself, taking in the sheer, overwhelming scale of the landscape before you. You are standing on the edge of a vast, sweeping valley. Below you, a sea of tall, golden-green grasses ripples like water in the wind. The grass is thicker, taller, and wilder than any meadow you have ever seen, reaching up to the waist of a full-grown adult. Scattered across this ocean of green are colossal trees, ancient oaks and towering conifers with trunks so wide it would take 10 people to link arms around them. Their dark green canopies form massive islands of shadow in the late afternoon sun. In the distance, jagged, snow-capped mountains pierce the pale blue sky, their peaks shrouded in wispy clouds. The silence is profound, but it is not empty. It is a thick, textured quiet, woven from 1,000 tiny sounds. The rustle of leaves, the frantic chirping of unseen insects, the distant, hollow calling of a bird soaring high on the thermal currents. It is a silence that demands your respect, a silence that makes you acutely aware of your own heartbeat, thudding rhythmically in your chest. You take your first step. The ground is uneven, a soft, yielding mixture of soil, moss, and decaying plant matter. It absorbs the sound of your boots, muffling your footsteps as if the earth itself is conspiring to keep your presence a secret. And a secret you must remain. You are no longer the apex predator, securely seated at the top of the food chain in a concrete fortress. Here, you are merely a participant in a vast, ancient ecosystem. a fragile creature of flesh and bone in a world ruled by giants. To survive this first week, you must shed the arrogance of the modern era. You must learn to look, to listen, and to move with the quiet intention of a prey animal that wishes to see tomorrow. The sun is already beginning its slow descent toward the western horizon, casting long, stretching shadows across the valley floor. The golden hour of the prehistoric world paints the landscape in hues of deep amber and fiery orange, a breathtaking display that masks the creeping urgency of your situation. You need water and you need shelter. You begin to move down the gentle slope of the hill, choosing your path carefully. You avoid stepping on dry branches that might snap with a loud echoing crack, and you weave your way through the dense patches of ferns that brush against your legs like rough green hands. Your senses are on high alert. Every rustle in the underbrush causes you to freeze, your muscles tensing, your breath catching in your throat. Was that the wind or something moving through the grass? You wait, listening intently until the rhythm of the forest convinces you it is safe to proceed. This hyper-awareness is exhausting, a constant drain on your mental energy, but it is also deeply primal. It is the awakening of instincts that have laid dormant in human DNA for countless generations. You are learning to read the landscape, not as scenery, a beautiful background to a photograph, but as a living, breathing entity that holds both sustenance and peril. As you navigate the terrain, you listen for the telltale sounds of running water. A human can survive for weeks without food, but only days without water. Here, dehydration is an immediate, pressing threat. The wind shifts, bringing with it a subtle coolness, a dampness that feels different from the surrounding air. You alter your course, following this invisible trail, your ears straining to catch the delicate, musical sound of a stream over the ambient noise of the forest. Minutes bleed into an hour. The light is growing softer, the shadows deeper and more imposing. Finally, you hear it, a soft, rhythmic gurgling. You push your way through a thick thicket of berry bushes, their thorns pulling gently at your clothes, and emerge onto the bank of a small, winding creek. The water is crystalline, flowing briskly over a bed of smooth, multicolored pebbles. It is a lifeline cutting through the heart of the wild. You kneel carefully by the edge, the damp soil soaking through the knees of your trousers. You cup your hands, dipping them into the icy current. The coldness is a shock, a sudden, sharp sensation that makes you gasp. You bring the water to your lips and drink. It is the purest, most delicious water you have ever tasted. It tastes of stone, of melted snow, of the very essence of the earth. You drink greedily, splashing the freezing liquid over your face and neck, washing away the nervous sweat of your arrival. For a brief, fleeting moment, the anxiety of your situation recedes, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude. The earth has provided. You sit back on your heels, watching the water swirl around a submerged log, mesmerizing in its continuous, eternal motion. But the moment of peace is short-lived. The sun has dipped behind the towering peaks of the mountains, and the sky is rapidly bruising into shades of deep violet and indigo. The temperature is dropping noticeably. The The prehistoric night is approaching, and the night belongs to the predators. You must find shelter. Sleeping out in the open amidst the tall grasses is not an option. You need a place where your back is protected, a place that offers a barrier against the elements and the creatures that prowl in the dark. You follow the creek upstream, hoping it will lead to rockier terrain. The forest grows denser here, the trees crowding closer together, their branches intertwining to form a thick wooden canopy that blocks out the last remaining light. You move faster now, a sense of urgency quickening your pace. Your eyes scan the shadows, searching for a cave, a hollow log, or a deep overhang. The terrain begins to incline sharply, the soft soil giving way to exposed roots and jagged gray rocks. You scramble up a steep embankment, your boots struggling for purchase, your hands grasping at sturdy vines to pull yourself up. There, nestled near the base of a massive rocky bluff, you spotted a natural indentation in the stone, a shallow overhang created by millennia of wind and water erosion. It is not a deep cave, which is preferable, as deep caves often belong to bears or big cats, but a modest, dry alcove, large enough for you to curl up comfortably inside. You approach it cautiously, picking up a heavy, stout branch from the ground. You peer into the gloom of the overhang, sniffing the air for the musky scent of an animal, listening for the sound of breathing. Nothing. It is empty. A small patch of dry, sandy earth sits beneath a ceiling of solid rock. It is a humble refuge, but in this vast, untamed wilderness, it looks like a sanctuary. You crawl into the space, turning around so you are facing outward, watching the darkening forest. The rock behind you is cool but solid, offering a comforting sense of security. You gather whatever dry leaves, pine needles, and soft moss you can find in the immediate vicinity, dragging them into your small shelter to create a makeshift bed. It is crude, it will be uncomfortable, but it will provide a crucial layer of insulation between your body and the cold ground. As you finish arranging your primitive mattress, the last sliver of twilight fades, and true darkness descends upon the valley. It is a darkness unlike anything you have ever experienced. In the modern world, there is always ambient light, a street lamp, a glowing window, the moon reflecting off concrete. Here, beneath the thick canopy of the ancient forest, the blackness is absolute. It is a heavy, velvet cloak that smothers your vision, forcing you to rely entirely on your other senses. And as your sight fails, your hearing amplifies to an agonizing degree. The forest, which had seemed relatively quiet during the day, comes alive with a symphony of terrifying sounds. The chirping of daytime insects is replaced by the harsh, rhythmic clicking of nocturnal creatures. The wind howling through the branches sounds like a chorus of mournful voices. And then, from somewhere far across the valley, comes a sound that freezes the blood in your veins. It is a deep, guttural roar, a sound of immense power and raw, predatory intent. It echoes through the night, a chilling reminder of the monsters that roam this era. Perhaps a cave lion or a short-faced bear asserting its dominance over the darkness. You pull your knees to your chest, wrapping your arms tightly around your legs, trying to make yourself as small and insignificant as possible. You close your eyes, though it makes no difference in the pitch black. You focus on your breathing, trying to slow the frantic racing of your heart. In, out, in, out. You tell yourself that the roar was far away, that your shelter is hidden, that you are safe for tonight. The fear is a cold knot in your stomach, but as the hours stretch on, the sheer exhaustion of the day begins to wage a war against your anxiety. The sensory overload of traveling back in time, the physical exertion of navigating the terrain, the emotional toll of profound isolation, it all culminates in a heavy, irresistible weariness. The temperature plummets further, the night air turning frigid. You burrow deeper into your pile of leaves and moss, shivering slightly. You realize that tomorrow your primary goal must be fire. Without fire, the nights will be an endless battle against the cold and the creeping dread of the unseen. But for now, there is nothing more you can do. You must surrender to the night. You listen to the rhythmic gurgling of the creek below, trying to focus your mind on that soothing, constant sound. It is a lullaby from the earth, a gentle whisper that has played continuously for millions of years. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the grip of fear begins to loosen. The deep, guttural roars fade into the background, becoming just another part of the prehistoric tapestry. Your breathing slows, matching the steady rhythm of the water. Your muscles, tense and aching, finally begin to relax. As the ancient starlit sky wheels silently above the unseen canopy, you drift into a deep, dreamless sleep, successfully surviving your very first day in the dawn of the world. You wake slowly, the cold seeping deeply into your bones. The transition from sleep to wakefulness is not abrupt, but a gradual, shivering realization of your surroundings. Your muscles ache, stiff and protesting against the hard, uneven ground beneath your makeshift bed of leaves and moss. You open your eyes, and for a disorienting second, you forget where you are. There is no ceiling, no alarm clock, no soft hum of a refrigerator. There is only the rough grey stone of the overhang, mere inches from your face, and beyond it, the pale, milky light of a prehistoric dawn. The air is frigid, sharp enough to sting your nostrils as you inhale. A thick layer of white frost coats the tall grasses and the leaves of the lower bushes, transforming the valley into a sparkling, crystalline dreamscape. You sit up, pulling your thin clothing tighter around your torso, your breath forming plumes of white mist in the air. The forest is eerily quiet, the nocturnal predators having retreated to their dens, and the diurnal creatures only just beginning to stir. This is the transition period, a brief window of tranquility where the world holds its breath. You crawl out of your shelter, your joints popping in the cold air. The immediate necessity of survival washes over you, eclipsing any lingering awe or terror. You are thirsty, but more importantly, you are beginning to feel the hollow, gnawing ache of hunger in your stomach. And above all else, you realize the absolute, undeniable necessity of fire. Last night was a miserable trial of endurance. Another night without a flame might break your spirit, if not your body. You carefully make your way down the steep, rocky embankment toward the creek. The descent is more treacherous in the dim morning light, the frost making the exposed roots and stones slick and dangerous. You move with deliberate slowness, testing every foothold before committing your weight. When you finally reach the water, you find a thin crust of ice forming at the edges where the current is slowest. You break it with a sharp tap of a stone, the ice splintering with a delicate, glassy chime. You drink deeply, the water so cold it causes a momentary sharp ache behind your eyes. But it clears your mind, sharpening your focus for the monumental tasks ahead. Your first priority is a tool. In this era, your soft, uncalloused hands are practically useless against the raw materials of nature. You need something that can cut, scrape, and dig. You begin to walk along the banks of the creek, your eyes scanning the thousands of smooth, river-tumbled stones. You are looking for something specific: flint, chert, or perhaps a piece of quartz. Something that will fracture cleanly and leave a razor-sharp edge. You spend an hour sifting through the stones, your fingers growing numb in the icy water. Just as frustration begins to mount, a flash of dark, glassy material catches your eye, partially buried in the mud. You dig it out. A large, heavy nodule of dark grey flint, smooth on one side and rough on the other. It feels solid and promising in your hand. Next, you find a heavier, rounded riverstone made of hard granite to act as your hammerstone. You carry your prizes back up to the dry, sandy floor of your rocky overhang. You sit cross-legged, holding the flint nodule in your non-dominant hand, resting it against your thigh for stability. You take a deep breath, visualizing the angle and the force needed. In modern life, mistakes are easily rectified. Here, a shattered stone means starting over, wasting precious time and energy. You strike the edge of the flint with the hammerstone. Clack! The sound is sharp, echoing slightly against the rock wall. A small shower of dull grey dust falls away, but the stone remains whole. You adjust your angle, striking harder. Crack! This time, a satisfying pop resonates as a thin, sharp flake of flint shears off, landing in the dirt. You pick it up. The edge is remarkably thin, tapering to a point sharper than a modern steel scalpel. It is a crude, rudimentary tool, a simple flake, but as you test it against a thick vine, slicing through the tough fibers with startling ease, you feel a profound sense of accomplishment. You have taken your first deliberate step in conquering this environment. You have become a maker. With your newly fashioned cutting tool, you set out to gather the materials for fire. The forest is damp from the morning frost, which presents a massive obstacle. You need dry wood, bone-dry tinder, and an immense amount of friction. You wander away from the creek, moving higher up the slope where the morning sun is beginning to pierce the canopy, hoping to find materials that have escaped the worst of the dampness. You scan the trunks of the ancient trees, looking for dead branches still attached to the main trunk, suspended above the moist ground. You find a dead, sun-bleached branch on a fallen oak and use a heavier piece of stone to batter it loose. Next, you need a spindle, a straight, sturdy piece of hardwood. You spend ages searching through the undergrowth, finally settling on a straight shoot of what looks like hazel. You use your flint flake to meticulously strip away the bark, smoothing the wood until it slides cleanly between your palms. The most critical component, however, is the tinder. It must be able to catch the tiniest, most fragile spark and nurse it into a flame. You search the bases of the giant birch trees, peeling away paper-thin strips of loose, curling bark. You gather dry, brittle grasses from the edge of the valley, crushing them in your hands to expose the fine, highly combustible fibers inside. You find a piece of dry, fibrous fungus growing on a dead log and add it to your collection. You carry your haul back to the overhang, arranging everything meticulously. You are preparing for a battle of physics and endurance. You use the flint to carve a small V-shaped notch into the edge of your flat baseboard, creating a channel for the hot ember to fall into. You place your nest of birch bark and crushed grass directly beneath the notch. You position yourself over the board, kneeling in the dirt. You place the tip of the hazel spindle into the small indentation you've carved next to the notch. You place your hands flat against either side of the spindle at the very top. You take a deep breath, steadying your nerves, and then you begin to rub your hands together, pushing downward, spinning the stick rapidly back and forth. The first few minutes are deceivingly easy. The wood squeaks softly, wood against wood, but nothing happens. You press harder, spinning faster. Your hands slide down the spindle, forcing you to quickly move them back to the top and resume the motion without losing momentum. It is an exhausting, frantic dance. 5 minutes pass. Your shoulders begin to burn with the exertion. You are breathing heavily, sweat beading on your forehead despite the chill in the air. Still, nothing. You stop, your arms trembling, and look at the indentation. The wood is slightly darkened, but there is no smoke, no heat. Doubt creeps in, a cold, insidious whisper in your mind. What if you chose the wrong wood? What if it's too damp? What if you simply aren't strong enough? You shake off the negativity. Despair is a luxury you cannot afford. You adjust your posture, putting more of your upper body weight over the spindle. You begin again, faster this time, ignoring the growing ache in your muscles and the raw friction building on your palms. You spin and spin and spin. The squeaking deepens into a low, grinding groan. You focus entirely on the point where the spindle meets the baseboard. 10 minutes. 15. Your hands are blistering, the skin tearing slightly under the relentless friction. You want to stop, you desperately need to rest, but you know that if you lose the heat, you have to start all over again. And then you smell it. It is faint at first, a subtle, sharp scent of toasted wood that cuts through the earthy smell of the forest. Your heart leaps. You push through the pain, spinning with a renewed, frantic energy. A tiny, miraculous wisp of grey smoke curls up from the friction point, spiraling lazily into the cold air. Don't stop, you whisper to yourself, a mantra of survival. Don't stop. The smoke thickens, turning from grey to a yellowish brown. The grinding sound is loud now, accompanied by a faint crackling. You give it one final, agonizing burst of speed, bearing down with all your remaining strength, and then you quickly pull the spindle away. In the center of the V-shaped notch, sitting delicately on the edge of the wood, is a tiny, glowing red mountain of dust. it is an ember. It is alive. You freeze, terrified that a sudden movement or a stray breath will extinguish it. You carefully use your flint flake to tap the baseboard, coaxing the fragile ember to fall down the notch and directly into the center of your tinder nest. You drop the board and gently pick up the nest, cupping it in your hands as if holding a wounded bird. You bring it close to your face. The smoke is stinging your eyes, but you don't blink. You purse your lips and begin to blow. Not a hard, sharp breath, but a long, steady, gentle stream of air. The ember brightens, flaring from dull red to a brilliant, angry orange. The heat radiates against your palms. You blow again, feeding it the oxygen it craves. The smoke billows thickly now, choking you, making you cough, but you keep the stream of air constant. The birch bark begins to curl and blacken under the intense heat. You blow one more time, pouring the last of your breath into the nest. With a sudden, soft whoosh, a tongue of yellow flame leaps from the tinder. You quickly place the burning bundle onto the sandy floor of the overhang and begin feeding it with the smallest, driest twigs you gathered. The flames catch eagerly, climbing the twigs, snapping and crackling with a joyful, triumphant sound. You add larger twigs, then small branches, building a teepee of wood over the growing fire. Within minutes, a robust, crackling fire is burning brightly in your shelter. You sit back on your heels, staring at the dancing flames. The heat washes over your face and chest, a physical blanket of comfort that melts away the deep chill of the prehistoric morning. You look at your hands. They are covered in dirt, bleeding slightly from blisters, and shaking with exhaustion. But as you look back at the fire, a profound, primal surge of emotion overwhelms you. You laugh, a dry, ragged sound that echoes off the rock wall. You have made fire. In this ancient, unforgiving world, you have claimed a piece of the sun for yourself. You are no longer just surviving, you are adapting. With the fire secured and a small stockpile of wood gathered to keep it burning, the gnawing emptiness in your stomach becomes impossible to ignore. Water and warmth are secured. Now you must find calories. Foraging in an unknown, prehistoric environment is incredibly dangerous. A single brightly colored berry or an unfamiliar root could contain toxins that cause severe illness or death. You must rely on universal principles of foraging. Avoid plants with milky sap, avoid brightly colored insects or amphibians, and look for familiar patterns. You leave your fire crackling safely in the overhang and venture back out into the valley. The sun is higher now, burning away the last of the morning frost and casting a golden, warming light over the sea of tall grass. You use a sturdy stick to poke through the underbrush, your eyes scanning the ground. You are looking for signs of tubers or roots, plants with thick, fleshy bases that store carbohydrates. After an hour of slow, methodical searching, you spot a cluster of broad, heart-shaped leaves growing near the damp soil of the creek bank. You recognize the general family of the plant. It resembles wild ginger or a type of arrowroot. You drop to your knees and use your makeshift digging stick, a sharp piece of wood you hastily whittled with your flint, to loosen the dark, loamy earth around the base of the plant. The soil is rich and smells of decay and life. You dig deep, your fingers plunging into the cool dirt, feeling for the swollen roots. Your fingers brush against something hard and bulbous. You carefully unearth it, a large, knobby tuber covered in fine root hairs and caked in mud. You wipe the dirt away, revealing a pale, starchy skin. You cut a small slice with your flint tool and touch it tentatively to your tongue. You wait. 5 minutes pass. No burning, no tingling, no numbness. You chew the small piece. It is incredibly bland, fibrous, and tastes heavily of dirt, but it does not taste bitter or acrid, which are common signs of toxicity. Emboldened, you dig up several more of the tubers, filling your pockets and a makeshift pouch fashioned from the hem of your shirt. As you work, a sudden, deep vibration ripples through the ground beneath your knees. It is not an earthquake, but the heavy, rhythmic thud of massive footsteps. You freeze, your hands buried in the soil, your heart rate spiking instantly. You slowly turn your head, peering through the dense foliage of the bushes lining the creek. Emerging from the tree line on the opposite side of the valley, moving with a slow, majestic grace, is a herd of creatures that defy modern comprehension. They are Megaloceros, the giant deer of the Pleistocene. They are breathtakingly massive, standing nearly 7 feet tall at the shoulder. Their coats a shaggy, dark brown that blends seamlessly with the shadows of the forest. But it is the antlers of the males that truly inspire awe. They are colossal, sweeping out from their heads in wide, palmate arches that must span 10 or 12 feet across. They look impossibly heavy, yet the majestic beasts carry them with effortless dignity. You crouch lower, holding your breath, absolutely mesmerized by the sight. They are grazing peacefully, stripping leaves from the lower branches of the trees and tearing up mouthfuls of the tall grass. You watch them for a long time, the sheer scale of their existence making you feel incredibly small and insignificant. This is their world. You are merely a ghost visiting from a distant, unimaginable future. You watch until the herd slowly meanders further down the valley, their massive forms dissolving into the heat haze and the shadows. The encounter leaves you shaken, but not with fear. It is a profound sense of privilege, a feeling of witnessing something beautiful and lost to time. You return to your shelter as the afternoon sun begins to wane, casting long, stretching shadows once again. Your fire has died down to a bed of glowing red coals. You quickly add fresh wood, blowing gently until the flames roar back to life. You take your harvested tubers and nestle them directly into the hot ashes at the edge of the fire, letting them bake in the radiant heat. As the evening draws in and the temperature begins its rapid plunge, you sit cross-legged before your fire. The smell of the roasting tubers fills the small overhang, a comforting, savory aroma that makes your stomach rumble violently. When you finally pull the tubers from the ashes, they are charred black on the outside. You crack one open, steam billowing from the pale, soft flesh within. You eat it eagerly, burning your tongue in your haste. It is starchy and earthy, somewhat resembling a very dry, dense potato, but to your starving body, it is a feast. It is energy. It is survival. The prehistoric night falls, but it is not the terrifying, suffocating blackness of the first night. The fire pushes back the dark, casting a warm, flickering, orange dome of light around you. The shadows dance against the rock wall, moving in time with the flames. You hear the sounds of the night, the rustling, the distant calls, the occasional unsettling snap of a branch. But the panic is gone. The fire is a shield, a weapon, and a companion. You pile enough wood near your bed to last through the night, ensuring you can feed the flames without leaving the warmth of your shelter. You lie down on your mossy bed, the heat of the fire radiating against your face. Your hands throb, your muscles ache, and you are covered in dirt and soot. But as you close your eyes, you feel a profound, quiet strength settling into your bones. You have faced the dawn of the world. You have bent nature to your will, just enough to secure warmth and food, and you have survived day 2. The rhythmic crackle of the fire is the last thing you hear as you drift into a deep, restful sleep. The morning of your 3rd day arrives not with the gentle, crystalline frost of the day before, but with a heavy, clinging mist that blankets the valley floor. You wake to the soft, rhythmic patter of moisture dripping from the rocky lip of your overhang onto the sandy earth below. The air is thick and damp, carrying the rich, loamy scent of wet soil and decaying leaves. You sit up, your body protesting slightly less than yesterday. You are beginning to acclimatize, your muscles slowly adapting to the harsh reality of sleeping on the ground and the constant physical exertion of survival. You turn your attention immediately to the fire pit. The flames have long since died, but a mound of white ash remains. You kneel beside it, feeling a faint, lingering warmth radiating from the center. With extreme care, you use a small stick to gently scrape away the top layer of ash. Beneath it, a cluster of cherry-red coals glows faintly, pulsing like a sleeping heartbeat. A wave of profound relief washes over you. You do not have to repeat the agonizing process of the friction fire today. You gather a handful of the dry grass you thoughtfully stored at the back of the overhang last night, shaping it into a loose nest. You place it directly over the coals and lean in close. You blow a long, steady stream of air, watching as the edges of the grass begin to brown and curl. The heat intensifies, the red glow brightening until, with a sudden, cheerful crackle, a bright yellow flame bursts forth. You feed it small twigs, then larger branches, until the fire is roaring once more, pushing back the damp chill of the misty morning. As you sit by the fire, warming your hands, you assess your situation. You have shelter, you have fire, and you have a rudimentary source of carbohydrates from the tubers. But your body is craving protein and fats, the dense, long-lasting energy required to maintain your strength in this unforgiving environment. You also face a logistical problem: hydration. The creek is close, but walking down the steep, slippery embankment every time you need a drink is inefficient and burns precious calories. You need a way to store water, and you need a more substantial food source. You spend the first few hours of the morning addressing the water issue. You venture out into the mist, moving silently through the damp forest. You are looking for a specific type of tree, one with thick, pliable bark. You eventually find a massive fallen birch tree, its bark already beginning to peel away in large, curved sections. Using your trusty flint flake, you score a large rectangle into the bark, carefully prying it away from the rotting wood beneath. The piece you extract is large, almost the size of a modern serving tray, and naturally curved. You carry it back to your camp along with several long, flexible roots from a nearby pine tree. Sitting by the fire, you begin the slow, meditative work of crafting a primitive vessel. You fold the ends of the birch bark inward, creating a rough, box-like shape. It is clumsy work, your unpracticed fingers struggling against the stiff material. You use the sharp point of your flint to punch small holes through the folded layers of bark, then thread the flexible pine roots through the holes, lacing them tightly to bind the corners together. To make it watertight, you take a lump of soft, sticky pine resin you gathered from the trunk of a living tree and heat it near the edge of the fire until it becomes pliable. You press the warm resin into the seams and corners of your bark bowl, smoothing it out with your thumb. It is a crude, asymmetrical creation, but when you carry it down to the creek and fill it with icy water, it holds. You carry it back up the embankment, placing it carefully in the coolest, shadowed corner of your overhang. You now have a reservoir. It is a small victory, but in the Pleistocene, survival is built entirely upon small victories. With water secured, your thoughts turn back to food. Hunting is out of the question. You have neither the weapons nor the skills to bring down even a small mammal, and attempting to do so would burn more energy than it would yield. You must trap. You return to the creek, walking further downstream where the water widens and the current slows, forming deep, tranquil pools shadowed by overhanging willow trees. You sit on the bank for a long time, remaining perfectly still, watching the water. After 20 minutes, your patience is rewarded. A flash of silver catches the dim light beneath the surface. Then another. Fish. They are not large, perhaps the size of modern trout, but they represent a vital source of protein and fat. You cannot catch them with your bare hands, so you must build a trap. You spend the next hour harvesting dozens of long, straight, flexible shoots from the willow trees lining the bank. You carried the large bundle back to your camp, the repetitive nature of the task offering a strange sort of mental comfort. You clear a space near the fire and begin to weave. You start by lashing several thicker branches together to form a sturdy, cone-shaped frame. Then, using the thinner, more pliable willow shoots, you begin to weave them over and under the frame, spiraling upward from the base. It is slow, painstaking work. Your fingers ache and the sharp ends of the twigs occasionally scratch your skin, but you fall into a rhythm. The world outside your small, smoky shelter fades away. There is only the rough texture of the bark, the smell of the green wood, and the repetitive motion of your hands. As you weave, you are connecting with a deeply ancestral practice, performing a task that human hands have done for hundreds of thousands of years. You are building a funnel trap. The wide end will face the current, inviting the fish to swim inside, but the narrow end will feature inward-pointing prongs, making it nearly impossible for them to find their way back out. By the time you finish, the afternoon is entirely gone, and the misty sky has darkened into a bruised, ominous purple. The air pressure has dropped significantly, a heavy, suffocating stillness settling over the valley. The forest goes completely silent. The birds stop singing. The insects cease their chirping. It is the deep, instinctual silence that precedes a massive weather event. You carry your woven trap down to the creek. The water level has already risen slightly from the pervasive mist. You find a narrow bottleneck in the stream between two large, moss-covered boulders. You wedge the trap securely between the rocks, piling smaller stones around the edges to force the water and anything swimming in it to flow directly through the wide opening of your woven cone. You scramble back up to your shelter just as the first drops of rain begin to fall. They are huge, heavy drops that slap against the broad leaves of the forest with a sound like scattered applause. You quickly gather every piece of dry wood you can find nearby, dragging it into the back of your overhang. You build the fire up, creating a substantial bed of coals that will generate intense heat. Then the sky tears open. A blinding flash of lightning illuminates the entire valley in a stark, jagged, blue-white light, freezing the swaying trees and the driving rain into a single, terrifying photograph. A split second later, the thunder hits. It is not a rumble, it is a physical blow, a concussive boom that shakes the very bedrock beneath you. You press yourself against the back wall of your shelter, your hands covering your ears. The rain falls in sheets, a torrential, vertical river that instantly transforms the gentle creek below into a roaring, frothing torrent of muddy water. The wind howls through the valley, whipping the branches of the ancient trees into a violent frenzy. You sit by your fire, watching the prehistoric tempest rage just feet away from you. The contrast is incredibly stark. Outside is absolute chaos, a display of raw, unfiltered planetary power that could easily snap trees and drown the unwary. But inside your small rocky alcove, you are warm. The fire crackles defiantly against the dampness, casting its golden light over your crude bark bowl and the sandy floor. The storm rages for hours, a relentless assault of water and sound, but your shelter holds. The overhang keeps you perfectly dry. As the night deepens, the thunder gradually rolls away, echoing fainter and fainter against the distant mountain peaks. The violent wind subsides into a steady, rhythmic rainfall. Safely tucked away in your stone sanctuary, lulled by the warmth of the fire and the mesmerizing sound of the rain, you close your eyes and drift to sleep, feeling a profound sense of security in the midst of a wild world. Day 4 dawns with a breathtaking clarity. The storm has washed the world clean. The heavy mist is gone, replaced by a sky of such brilliant, piercing blue that it almost hurts to look at it. The air is crisp and smells sharply of ozone and crushed pine. Every leaf, every blade of grass is adorned with a trembling drop of water that catches the early morning sun, turning the valley into a glittering expanse of diamonds. You wake feeling surprisingly refreshed. The dampness of the previous days has been purged from the air. You stretch, stoke the fire back to life from the remaining embers, and immediately head down to the creek. Your heart pounds with anticipation as you navigate the slippery, mud-slicked embankment. The creek is swollen and aggressive, rushing over the rocks with a loud, white water roar. You reach the bottleneck between the boulders. The water is murky, churning with sediment churned up by the storm. You cannot see the trap. Panic flares for a moment. What if the current washed it away? What if all your painstaking labor was for nothing? You wade into the freezing water, the current pulling strongly against your calves. You reach down into the rushing water, your hands groping blindly between the rocks. Your fingers brush against the rough texture of the woven willow branches. The trap is still there, wedged tightly where you left it. You grab the thick frame and pull upward. It is heavy, heavier than a bundle of wet sticks should be. You haul it out of the water and onto the grassy bank, water pouring from the woven sides. You peer into the narrow opening. Inside, thrashing wildly against the wooden bars, are two thick, silver-scaled fish. A sound escapes your lips, a cross between a laugh and a shout of pure triumph. You have outsmarted the wild. You carefully extract the fish, ensuring you end their struggle quickly and humanely with a sharp strike from a heavy stone. You carry them back to your camp, holding them by the gills, their slick scales gleaming in the sunlight. You feel like a conqueror returning with the spoils of war. Back at the fire, you use your sharpest flint flake to quickly clean the fish. You do not waste anything. The entrails are carefully buried far away from the camp to avoid attracting predators. You find a pair of flat, relatively clean stones and place them close to the edge of the fire, letting them heat up until water sizzles and instantly evaporates when flicked upon them. You place the fish directly onto the hot stones. The smell that fills your shelter is intoxicating, the scent of searing fish skin, the rich, oily smoke rising from the fat melting onto the hot rocks. Your stomach clenches painfully, demanding the nourishment. You watch the flesh turn from translucent to an opaque, flaky white. When they are cooked through, you use 2 sticks to lift them off the stones. You don't wait for them to cool completely. You burn your fingers, picking the meat away from the delicate bones. The first bite is an explosion of flavor. It is rich, fatty, and perfectly unseasoned, tasting only of the pure, clean water of the creek and the smoke of the wood fire. It is the best meal you have ever eaten in your entire life. You consume every morsel of flesh, savoring the dense, vital energy flooding into your system. As you finish the second fish, licking the grease from your fingers, a profound sense of well-being settles over you. Your body has fuel. Your mind is clear. For the first time since you arrived in this ancient era, you feel a shift in your internal dynamic. You are no longer desperately scrambling just to stay alive. You are beginning to establish a routine. You are living. The rest of the 4th day is spent in quiet, methodical work. The psychological weight of your isolation begins to press in around the edges of your consciousness. In the modern world, you are never truly alone. There is always a voice on a screen, a message on a phone, the distant hum of an airplane overhead. Here, the solitude is absolute. You are the only human being for perhaps hundreds or even thousands of miles. The vastness of time and space is a heavy burden to comprehend. To combat the creeping loneliness, you keep yourself busy. You gather more firewood, building a massive stockpile against the back wall of the overhang to ensure you will not run out if another storm hits. You reinforce the walls of your shelter, weaving more willow branches and packing them with mud to create a barrier against the wind. As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in vibrant streaks of magenta and gold, you sit at the entrance of your cave. You watch the shadows lengthen across the valley floor. A massive, shadowy shape moves gracefully along the distant tree line. A woolly rhinoceros, its distinctive, massive horn silhouetted against the dying light. You watch it pass, feeling a deep, abiding respect for the incredible beasts that share this landscape. The fear that dominated your first night has evolved into a cautious reverence. You stoke the fire, watching the embers dance and swirl up into the darkening sky. You have survived 4 days. You have mastered fire, secured water, and procured meat. As the prehistoric night embraces the valley, accompanied by the familiar chorus of unseen creatures, you lay back on your bed of moss, feeling the warmth of the fire on your face. You are tired, but you are strong. You close your eyes, the rhythmic breathing of the wild world lulling you into a deep, peaceful sleep. The dawn of the 5th day arrives with a profound, unbroken silence, signaling a subtle but permanent shift within your own mind. You wake up before the sun has even breached the horizon, your body now naturally attuned to the circadian rhythms of the wild earth. There is no alarm clock jarring you from sleep, no sudden rush of cortisol demanding your immediate attention to the artificial stresses of modern life. Instead, your eyes open to the soft, slate-gray light of early morning filtering into the overhang. You lie still for a long time, listening to the gentle, eternal gurgling of the creek below and the rustle of the wind through the ancient oaks. You realize with a sense of quiet astonishment that the frantic, buzzing anxiety that had plagued your first few days has entirely evaporated. It has been replaced by a deep, grounded stillness. You are no longer an intruder frantically trying to impose your will upon the prehistoric landscape. You have become a part of it. You sit up, smoothly stirring the white ashes of your fire pit to reveal the glowing red embers beneath, and feed them with a handful of dry pine needles. The familiar comforting scent of wood smoke fills the air, and as the flames catch, you feel a profound sense of belonging. With your water reservoir filled and the remains of yesterday's catch sustaining your energy, you decide to venture further from your sanctuary than you have ever dared. You equip yourself with your sturdiest walking stick, a sharp flint blade securely tucked into your improvised woven belt, and step out into the vast, dew-soaked valley. The morning mist is a delicate silver veil clinging to the tall grasses, burning away slowly as the sun begins its ascent. You walk with a new kind of grace, your footsteps light and deliberate, rolling from heel to toe to minimize the sound of your passage. You are learning to read the text of the forest floor. A snapped twig here, a patch of flattened grass there, the subtle indentation of a hoofprint in the damp soil. The world is a complex, interwoven tapestry of stories, and you are finally learning to decipher its language. You hike for miles, following the winding path of the valley as it gently slopes upward toward the base of the distant snow-capped mountains. The vegetation slowly shifts, the deciduous broadleaf trees giving way to towering dark green conifers whose needles blanket the ground in a soft, silencing carpet. As you crest a large wooded ridge, a sound stops you dead in your tracks. It is a low, subsonic rumbling, a vibration that you feel in the marrow of your bones before it even registers in your ears. It sounds like distant thunder, but the sky above is a flawless, piercing blue. You crouch low, creeping to the edge of the ridge, and part the branches of a dense pine shrub. The breath catches in your throat, and your heart skips a beat. Below you, in a massive bowl-shaped depression where a glacial lake once pooled, is a herd of woolly mammoths. There are dozens of them, a slow-moving, majestic river of dark, shaggy fur and gleaming ivory. They are colossal, their domed heads towering over the tallest shrubs, their massive, pillar-like legs carrying their immense weight with a slow, deliberate grace. You watch as a massive matriarch, her tusks curved inward in magnificent overlapping spirals, uses her trunk to effortlessly uproot a small tree, stripping it of its branches with the casual ease of a human peeling a banana. The younger calves, barely the size of modern cars, gambol and play near the center of the herd, their high-pitched, trumpeting squeaks piercing the low rumble of the adults. You sit on the ridge for hours, entirely captivated by the sight. You are witnessing the true titans of the Pleistocene, living, breathing monuments to the Ice Age. The sheer scale of their existence makes you feel incredibly small, yet simultaneously deeply connected to the grand, sweeping narrative of life on Earth. You watch them until the sun begins to dip low in the sky, painting their shaggy silhouettes against the fiery orange backdrop of the dying day. The memory of their deep, rumbling calls will echo in your mind forever. Day 6 dawns bitter and cruel. The gentle autumn weather has abruptly vanished, replaced by the sharp, biting vanguard of a prehistoric winter. The sky is a flat, unyielding sheet of leaden gray, and the wind howls down from the mountain peaks with a vicious, icy edge that cuts through your crude clothing like a physical blade. You spend the entirety of the morning frantically gathering firewood, dragging massive dead logs back to your overhang and chopping them into manageable pieces with a heavy, sharp-edged stone axe you painstakingly fashioned the day before. Your breath plumes in thick white clouds, and your fingers ache with a dull, throbbing cold. You know that tonight will be a test of endurance unlike anything you have faced so far. As twilight descends, the temperature plummets precipitously. The dampness in the air crystallizes, turning the forest into a brittle, frozen landscape. You build your fire much larger than usual, pushing it toward the very mouth of the overhang so the heat radiates inward, creating a thermal barrier against the encroaching frost. You wrap yourself in every layer of clothing you possess, burrowing deep into your mattress of dried moss and leaves. The darkness outside is absolute, a heavy, oppressive void. Then, over the howling of the wind, you hear it. It is a sound that triggers an ancient primal terror buried deep within your DNA. A low, raspy cough, followed by a deep, vibrating purr that reverberates against the stone walls of your shelter. You freeze, every muscle in your body locking into rigid tension. Slowly, agonizingly, you turn your head toward the entrance of the overhang. Beyond the flickering ring of firelight, at the very edge of the impenetrable darkness, are two glowing amber orbs. Eyes. They are large, widely spaced, and utterly unblinking, reflecting the dancing flames with a cold, predatory intelligence. The creature takes a single, silent step forward into the dim periphery of the light. You see the massive, muscular shoulders, the tawny, spotted coat, and the terrifying, elongated canine teeth protruding past its lower jaw. It is a Smilodon, the saber-toothed cat. It is an apex predator perfectly evolved for killing, and it is looking directly at you. The air in the cave seems to vanish. You cannot breathe. You are entirely defenseless against a creature of this size and power. If it decides to charge, you will be dead before you can even stand. But you remember the one advantage you possess. You slowly, smoothly reach for the thickest, longest branch you have in your firewood pile. You slide one end deep into the hottest part of the embers, waiting until the wood catches fire, transforming into a blazing, sputtering torch. You stand up, making yourself as tall as possible, and step toward the mouth of the cave, thrusting the burning branch outward. You roar, a loud, guttural, desperate sound that tears from your throat, a challenge born of pure survival instinct. The great cat pauses. It flinches slightly at the sudden movement and the intense burst of sparks from the torch. It lowers its massive head, letting out a deep, bone-rattling hiss that exposes the full, horrifying length of its saber teeth. But it does not advance. Fire is the great equalizer. It is the one element of this world that the beasts do not understand, the one thing they instinctively fear. You hold your ground, the torch trembling slightly in your hands, maintaining intense eye contact with the predator. For a minute that feels like an eternity, the two of you are locked in a silent, deadly standoff at the edge of the Pleistocene night. Finally, with a dismissive flick of its short tail, the Smilodon turns away. It melts back into the shadows, disappearing as silently as it arrived. You collapse to your knees, your entire body shaking violently as the adrenaline leaves your system. You feed the fire until it roars like a jet engine, and you do not sleep a single wink for the rest of the night, standing guard over your flame, deeply humbled by your brush with mortality. And then the seventh day arrives. The storm has passed, leaving behind a pristine, frozen world bathed in a cold, brilliant sunlight. You step out of your shelter, the frost crunching loudly beneath your boots. Your week is up. You have survived 7 days in an era where humanity was nothing more than a fragile experiment clinging to the edges of a hostile world. You have built fire with your bare hands, crafted tools from stone, woven traps from branches, and stared down the apex predators of a lost epoch. Your hands are scarred and calloused, your face is smeared with soot, and your body is lean and exhausted, but your spirit is forged in something unbreakable. You spend your final morning dismantling your camp. You do this out of a profound sense of respect for the environment. You untie the willow branches of your trap, scattering them into the brush. You pour the water from your birch bark bowl back into the creek, letting the vessel float away on the current. Finally, you stand before your fire pit. You use a large stick to separate the remaining embers, letting them cool, and then cover the ashes with damp earth and snow, erasing the evidence of your presence. You want to leave this pristine world exactly as you found it. You walk down to the edge of the sweeping valley one last time, looking out over the ocean of golden grass and the towering ancient oaks. You breathe in the crisp, unfiltered air, memorizing the scent of the crushed pine and the damp earth. You try to imprint the sheer scale of the mountains and the profound, textured silence of the forest into your memory. This place, this brutal, beautiful, unforgiving world has taught you more about who you are than a lifetime in the modern era ever could. You have learned that beneath the veneer of civilization, beneath the anxiety and the digital noise, beats the heart of a survivor. As the sun begins its final descent, painting the prehistoric sky in a heartbreaking display of violet and gold, the air around you begins to thicken. The familiar, formless mist starts to roll in from the edges of the valley, creeping silently through the tall grass, obscuring the trunks of the massive trees. The crisp scent of the wild begins to fade, replaced by a strange, sterile neutrality. The profound silence of the forest is slowly replaced by a low, distant hum. You close your eyes, feeling the damp, yielding earth beneath your boots slowly harden, transforming back into cold, unyielding concrete. The transition is slow, a gentle fading out of one reality and the fading in of another. When you finally open your eyes, the mist has cleared entirely. You are standing in your own home. The soft, artificial glow of a lamp casts long shadows across the floor. You hear the mechanical hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen and the distant, muffled sound of a car passing by on the street outside. The temperature is perfectly controlled, the air is still, and you are completely, undeniably safe. But you are not the same. You look down at your hands, expecting to see the blisters, the dirt, the soot. They are clean, smooth, and untouched. It feels like a dream, a vivid hallucination that is already beginning to slip through your fingers like sand. Yet, as you walk over to the window and look out at the cityscape, at the grid of streetlights and the glowing windows of 1,000 apartments, you feel a deep, abiding calm that you have never known before. The anxieties of your modern life, the deadlines, the social pressures, the endless stream of digital information feel suddenly trivial, fragile, and utterly inconsequential. You know with absolute certainty that no matter what the modern world throws at you, you possess an ancient, enduring strength. You have walked in the shadows of the giants. You have captured the fire. You have listened to the heartbeat of the raw, untamed earth, and you have survived. The wilderness is no longer a place of fear, but a sanctuary that resides within your own soul, a quiet, powerful refuge that you can return to whenever the noise of the present becomes too loud. You turn away from the window, turning off the lamp, and step into the quiet dark of your room, carrying the eternal, grounding spirit of the Pleistocene within you forever.